are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
And finally, welcome to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, here live exclusively on the Innovations Radio. Now we're finally here, man. Alex, this is not unusual.
No, it's not.
If it's not me, it's you.
That's right.
I mean, what is this? It's time to...
Wind blows.
Yeah. It's time to kill the PC. What?
It is.
Is that a 40 Creek I hear?
It is a 40.
Is that a 40 Creek sip?
Yes, it is.
I hope you got a few rounds for everybody tonight.
I got a whole bottle.
Oh, well, hey, you shouldn't have told that. You shouldn't have said that too loud, man.
I'll be right over.
Well, we're not going to waste any time. We'll take a break in a few minutes, but we'll bring everybody in that with it because it's quarter after, whatever. We may go a little longer. I'm sure Ray won't mind. Ray, you won't mind, will you? Anyways, you've tuned in to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, and tonight we're having our first dark discussions of the season, man. This is an early one for us.
It is early.
You sound like you are in, I don't know, Florida.
Who, me?
Yeah.
That's because I am.
You sound like the Matrix has gotten you too.
It might have. I don't know.
You're not in holiday mode yet, are you?
I will be in a few days.
That's what I mean. In a few days,
Yeah.
yes. So we've got quite the lineup tonight.
We do. An all-star cast.
An all-star cast. We've got what Dr.Demon
Gord.
Dr.Demon Gord calls the super paranormal group.
Yeah.
An update. Yeah. We've got our good friend Dr.Demon Gord Westwater with us this evening.
Ooh.
Yay.
Wow, that's enthusiastic. I love it, man. We've got our good friend Gareth Davies from the Mindset Podcast. Thanks for joining us, Gareth.
You're welcome, guys. Always a pleasure. Going to be a great show tonight.
Yeah, we should have fun. And of course, our really good friend Justin Villareal.
Evening, everyone.
Is that really you, Justin?
No, it's a clone. Since I've been traveling.
He hasn't gotten away from the mindset of the call-in phone sex lines. Still has that tone.
He just wants to hear that rickety, that rustic laugh of yours right now, Justin. There it goes. See?
Is that doing it for you?
No, it's not working. I think you lubed it up a little bit.
Oh, well, you don't want it too wet.
Thanks for joining us, guys. And you know what? Of course, we kind of had a sort of a framework to start things off, and that's usually the way it goes, and it goes all over the place, and that's the way. I don't know. I know, Justin, you've been a part of God knows how many of these.
Yep.
Over the years, and Gareth, you've been a part of a few of them yourself.
I have, yeah, one or two. It's been great.
And of course, Alex. Well, Alex, I think he was born out of dark discussions.
Yeah.
Were you? Right. You were basically born out of dark discussions.
I was born out of something dark, that's for sure.
Oh, but I mean, your first appearance on Nocturnal Frequency Radio was at Dark Discussions, was it not?
It was to talk about the e-zine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. What?
It wasn't really a dark discussion because you had me on as a guest to talk about the e-zine.
That's right. Yeah. But then we brought you back on for a dark discussion.
That's right.
No, you used to come in before.
I was always in the chat, yeah.
You were always in the chat. And didn't you call up one time during a dark discussion?
I may have. I can't remember.
I think one of those crazy 4-hour, I don't know, what they were just insane, some of those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we were up to 3-4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And by the time, the last hour of the show, you're like, okay, so what are we going to discuss now? I think we've pretty much discussed it all. And everyone's like, oh, well, I think I hear some snoring over there. Is so-and-so still with us? There were some really good conversations there. So, but anyways, if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Dark Discussions. Facebook, www.facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio. And, of course, Instagram, Nocturnal Frequency Radio. And I want to say BBM, but I'm not going to because it's non-existent.
That's right.
I won't get used to that. I just won't.
Unfortunately, you're going to have to.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. So anyways, we had somewhat of an agenda. And I know most of you guys have seen, like, The Demon House.
Oh, yes. I have notes for tonight.
Uh-oh.
Oh no!
Well, that's a good thing.
It's gonna be a 4-hour escapade. Now.
Well, that's a good thing, man. That's a good thing. He's got his notes. He's serious tonight, man. Gord, you've seen the Demon House.
Unfortunately, so yes.
Gareth, you've seen it as well, right?
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
I like his enthusiasm. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I probably stopped watching it about maybe 20% into it.
It was torture trying to finish it. It really was. It was torturous. I just keep thinking of that. The first episode. I think it was the first episode of Ghost Adventures.
When they all dive out the window?
No, with the brick flying at them.
Uh-huh.
And I go to myself, wow, they've really come a long way. Flying bricks to demons.
Well, it's always demons.
What's that?
Always been demons.
That seems to be their selling point. I know, but I mean, when you dive into a lot of those shows, and I don't really want to get into that too much, but I'm sure we will anyways. But I mean, most of these shows, in order to survive, they have to introduce the demon factor.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, okay, so why don't we start? Why do we need to introduce that to find some sort of success?
It's the scary factor. When you even watch any of these documentaries and most of these shows, there's a point where it has like a horror film, like a horror type of theme. When you're watching things, you're not really watching any of this as in like a educational or anything like that. It's more of like an entertainment. It's there to scare you. Even the music, especially in this movie, they really laid. Well, there's quite a bit that came out in the last handful of years, but they really laid it out in this one. And especially even the title of this movie is Demon House. That alone, of course, we'll get into it later, but that was a stretch in itself to even name this documentary as such, because there's no claims of demons. No one claimed any demons at all at any point in this film. And if it did come up, it was only because Zach Bagans infused that into the storyline. And there's a whole point towards I think the middle or the end of the documentary where that comes into play, and I won't totally spoil it yet because I'm sure we'll lead up to that. But most definitely, this was a stretch to even call this the Demon House because there was no point in it at all.
And I mean, let's clarify, because Gareth brought it up when we were, chatting there. Is it K or is it C?
For Zach?
Yeah.
I think it's C, right?
Is it C?
So.
I thought it was always K. Is it a K?
I think it's a K.
Is it K?
Is it K?
It doesn't matter.
K.
So I mean, it doesn't matter. But what? Let's look
call
at this.
Whatever.
Let's look at it this way. What's the difference between a K and a C? I mean, is it like a European, Russian thing, or I mean, what is it? Why? What's the difference?
It probably is a European thing, but I think in this case it goes along with this cool aesthetic with turned hats and.
Well, I mean,
name's Zachariah Bagans.
He's Zachariah Bagans, and
his brother's name is Bilbo.
Bilbo. I mean, when you look on YouTube, you'll see an old video. I mean, somebody posted it the other day, and I thought it was hilarious. He made an appearance when he was, I don't know, probably in his early 20s on The Family Feud.
Oh, yeah.
Oh wow!
His family was on The Family Feud. Him, his sister, and I don't know who else, but it's on YouTube. You can check it out. Just you just basically put in Zach Bagans Family Feud or something like that, and I'm sure it'll come up. And even then, you could see the guy he had the same sort of attitude, but just looked a little more nerdy.
That's interesting because that seems to be kind of a red thread with all these types of shows and whatnot. Well, I mean, in Ghost Hunters aspect, you had the plumbers for Roto-Rooter, but the majority of their whatever you want to call them, their team is really they're actors. They're almost all actors, and that's how they got. Even when they did Ghost Adventures International and then Ghost Hunters International and Ghost Hunters Academy or whatever, the majority of those people were screenwriters and actors that got involved.
You're kind of hitting the nail on the head there, Justin.
Oh wow! I didn't want to rush it. I didn't want to blow it a little too soon.
No. I mean, you're going down that avenue because the mistake that we make with these shows. Mm-hmm. I mean, all these shows it's entertainment.
Absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I think that we get disappointed because we're into the paranormal and we know that there's a reality to it, that we go into these movies and these shows thinking, oh, this is going to be real. When it's not. It's not real. It's make believe. It's fun. It's entertainment. I mean, everything we see on TV is not real. To a certain degree. You're right. We never get true reality on television, regardless, whether it's the news or current affairs or a reality show. There's all a heavy element of fantasy, and Ghost Adventures is no exception.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been on a couple TV shows and reality shows, and both of them were the same formula. Here you are going in and, oh, well, we have a script for you. Wait a sec. I thought this was reality TV. Yeah. No, so essentially you want me to act. Yes.
Yeah.
What did you do there, Steve? Were you on like Real World Quebec or something like that?
El Putino. No, I was on a TV show called Healthy Gourmet.
Oh, yes. I do remember that, yes.
Yeah, Healthy Gourmet, I was on that. And I did a couple other smaller things, but Healthy Gourmet was the bigger one, the larger one. But yeah, but I basically said, you can have whatever you want, but I will not fake anything. And that includes the sex scenes. Right?
Oh, really?
But you did use the stun butt, right?
Yeah.
Stun butt.
But I mean, you guys are absolutely right. That's it. I mean, and that's the problem. It's like wrestling.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, it's no different than that. It's the same formula. Here you are. Go ahead.
If you go into like Demon House, if you sit down to watch Demon House, knowing that it's sensationalized, and just going into it as pure entertainment, you'll have a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good time.
It really is a good movie. But if you go into it thinking, oh, they're going to investigate, and this is going to be, then you're going to be disappointed and you're going to hate it. Because that's not what it's about. It's about entertainment and fun.
And that's the huge problem that a lot of people have. I mean, a lot of people, I'd almost say a majority, will take this seriously. Like, we'll take this, you know, and say, look at, no, that's real. And I mean, when you confront that and you try to tell them else, forget it. There's no way. You know? I mean, I just had a conversation with a guy who is an investigator, I know, in the local area. And he wrote to me on Messenger, you know, just before the show, actually. And basically said, you know, look at it, you know, I have respect for him, da-da-da. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't like shooting down people when they tell me they have respect for this guy, but I mean, seriously. I mean, Gord, if I was to say to you, I respect Zach Bagans, I mean, what would you say? On a serious note, I mean...
On a serious note, it would depend on the angle, for me personally, of where you were going. I'm sure he started out just like the rest of us did as an investigator, and then someone dangled money in front of him. To the point that now he's playing this ludicrous character that we all want to punch in the face.
So essentially, what was Gord like in front of the demon house? Watching it.
I got through 10 minutes, and the reason that I personally got disgusted is there is a lot of people that I personally know that take it for fact.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever Ghost Adventures or Zach says, that happened. And no matter the same, you guys have already mentioned it, no matter how much you sit there and you go, listen, no. You wind up being the bad guy because I'm not on TV and he is. So way back when Ghost Adventures first started, the documentary, maybe a season or two, I used to love the show. Mm-hmm. But after I started getting to about season 4 and 5, now Zach's on steroids and he's kicking in front doors, going, "Yo, Ghost, you and me." I'm like, oh, we're done.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm hearing all sorts of whacked out shit about him, and especially now because a lot of you know that he's his connection with the Sharon Tate murder house, right?
Unfortunately,
yeah, he just bought the
he bought it.
The La Bianca mansion, right? That's what he just put like a couple of weeks ago, or a month or two ago.
And somebody said, and I don't know how real this is, and of course this could be another rumor, but he actually paid money for some of Manson's ashes.
I don't doubt it. I mean, he's got the haunted museum in Vegas where he stores a lot of serial killer artifacts and the like, and puts them on display there. So it wouldn't surprise me if he paid a ton of cash for Manson's ashes, and we'll have them on display shortly.
So what I see here, and especially with him, but it's not the only connection I see, but it seems to become it seems to be becoming a lot more oh my God, more present in this, and that's the connection between the, if you will, the paranormal and the fascination with serial killers.
Uh-huh.
I don't seem to have that because it's death. It's just...
I get that, but I mean, it's always been there, but why all of a sudden does this seem to be like sort of crossing over a lot more than it did in the past?
Because serial killers and the obscene things that they do, the horrific acts that these maniacs perpetrate, could be classified as evil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of darkness involved in what they do. And to have that kind of horrific display, I mean, that's attractive to people, to go to the museum and to go through the tour.
Yeah.
And witness these artifacts from real events, real horrific, tragic events on display. There's a curiosity there.
And the culture has exploded in the past 10 years, at least, with horror and paranormal kind of combining together, because these conventions kind of started merging all this type of, hype up, and it's a cultural thing. There's actually a paranormal culture, people.
Sure.
And it has hyped up this, along with our curiosity, like you said. It really is. And it's, when you think about it, what else are you going to sell when it comes to this type of stuff? You're only going to collect so many quote-unquote haunted objects, and then what are you left with in your museum? The easiest thing would be like, creepy stuff like a serial killer.
Yeah.
And if anything, the only thing that you could sell on that, if you really, you could take it from me if someone's out there willing to do it. The Son of Sam, put that on there. He was told by his dog that was Satan, if I remember correctly. The dog was Satan, telling him to go kill these people. And I believe the Ramirez brothers were supposedly doing witchcraft and some other things as well. So, I mean, you could tie it into that, but it is along the macabre when it comes to these types of things. So,
well, the Night Stalker, the serial killer in the late 80s here in L.A., he was a self-confessed Satanist.
Yeah.
And he did some horrific things. But some of the things that serial killers do, they're so despicable and so horrific that it's not really that much of a stretch to go into the realms of the demon.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
And
that's
possession and darkness. That kind of the thrill of stepping into the ultimate darkness and letting it wash over you. That kind of feeling with these events. So that it's not that much of a stretch to go down that kind of paranormal road when you're dealing with these people, because the things that they did, it's not like, he just killed someone. No, he didn't just kill them. Horrific, obscene things.
Yeah,
it pushes it beyond that limit of just of murder. It goes beyond that.
Obviously, exactly. It's we're the audience, and we're intrigued because that person, we'll say killer, has taken it to a next level that we would probably never ever commit, but we're extremely interested in the end result, which is macabre as it is, but that's the way human nature is.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. I mean, it's fascinating, to be on the outside looking in, and seeing what these crazy, psychos. I mean, it's stomach churning. It's horrific. But it's why we're attracted to horror movies and scary movies, But this takes it a step further. It's like seeing a really good scary movie, but when it's like, oh, wait a second, this really happened.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys, okay, since we're on this sort of serial killer thing, and I want to ask each one of you, because, I mean, I'm sure there was probably something going on, or something.
I'm not a serial killer.
No. Something that you remember. We'll start with Gareth. Gareth, when you were growing up, or when you could remember, was there a particular serial killer that frightened the shit out of you? One that I wouldn't say frightened, but that fascinated you, because I mean, let's face it. I mean, I know, growing up, I was always interested in Jack the Ripper.
Sure, yeah.
And that's not because I'd go out and do what Jack the Ripper was doing, but I mean, I think the fact that they never really discovered who the person was.
I remember growing up in the UK, and in the early 80s, there was I only remember fragments about this because my parents put a stop to it. But there was a killer, and they called him Dr. Death.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And great name. And I remember as a kid collecting the newspapers and cutting out the articles about Dr. Death and putting them in a scrapbook. And my dad found this scrapbook, and he lost his shit. He went like a mental case and threw all that stuff out and lectured me, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
Because as a parent now with my kids, I do the same thing, because if you have that kind of dark fascination as a young age, liking horror movies at a young age is one thing, but liking something that's real, that's that disturbing,
very,
that's messed up,
It is. And who do we blame? Society?
I don't know.
I mean, really, is there any
lives in us all?
Well, yeah. Justin, how about you? Did we lose Justin?
There we go. Sorry, guys. Oh yeah.
Oh no, he was.
For me, I think I guess three biggest ones. One was Albert Fish, which we don't really have to get into too many gruesome details of him, but he was a pretty big one for a while. I think that was like the 50s or maybe even earlier. Of course, J.J. Holmes, which was a huge Chicago serial killer at the time. There was, that was in the 1880s. But the biggest one, there are two biggest ones for me, would have been John Wayne Gacy. He already, I think he was caught in the 70s. So when I was in the 80s, there was already that lingering history, and we had, I think, from that alone was the clown scare came from John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
So you heard a lot of those types of things trail off until almost the late 90s. And of course, during that whole time, we were constantly, and of course, I'm here in Chicago, so John Wayne Gacy's in Chicago as well. We were always hearing they're finding more bodies. After finding bodies, they kept finding bodies from his, murders. And then the next biggest one would have been in Jeffrey Dahmer. And of course, both of those guys, I was growing up in that time, so Court TV, a lot of these things were already broadcasting this type of stuff. So when Jeffrey Dahmer was caught, we already had news about a possible serial killer, and we used to go to the Milwaukee Zoo. And during that time was actually when Jeffrey Dahmer was taking his victims, and it was shortly after that. So in some weird way, that kind of hit home, because as kids, you were hearing about a serial killer, and then just recently, not recently, but at that time, you find out that this man was caught with, one of the guys he was trying to pour acid, or he poured acid into his head and tried to create a zombie and escaped, and that's how he was caught. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And I heard about it. I grew up on Autopsy and stuff like that, and that just kind of trailed into all that. And so those would be the biggest guys for me, would be John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, during that time. And that was like, you were feeling it right then. You were experiencing all those things right around that same time.
How about you, Gord?
I didn't really have favorites or one that scared me.
I had a collection of collector cards that I used to fly and bend the corners.
Put my scrapbook to shame.
Well, I hit late teenage years just as the fascination with serial killers was going on. So me and my friends, we read about them all. Richard Ramirez, Henry Lee Lucas was another big psycho. We had John Wayne Gacy and Ted Bundy and we read about them all. It was more the psychology that I was fascinated by as to what drove these people to do this. Like Richard Ramirez, one of his motives was he would break into an elderly couple's home, kill the man, rape the old lady, make her cook for him, rape her again, and then kill her. And then he walks out of the courtroom after he's sentenced to life, smiling, holding up a pentagram he drew on his hand. It's not a phase, not a remorse, nothing.
It's weird you mentioned Ramirez, but I remember when I first moved to the United States in 93 or 94, a neighbor across the street was like an older lady and an older guy. And I remember they had this big steel screen door on their house, and I was talking to them one morning, and I said, "How come you got that crazy big screen door in your house?" And the guy was like, "Oh yeah, a few years ago when Richard Ramirez was on the prowl, I had it installed." Man, like right here when he was in the late '80s, when he was out and about, up to his crazy antics.
What about you, Alex? I mean, because you obviously you were born in Italy, spent your early years in Italy, but I mean, how about you?
No one in particular. I mean, I didn't get really fascinated with this stuff until later on in life, but I remember growing up, the Paul Bernardo case, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the ones that I just sort of heard about when I was growing up in high school.
Here's this innocent Italian guy going, all these crazy Canucks.
Yeah.
Where
I
have I
had
come
already
into?
lived here for a while by the time that happened.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But yeah, that was the like, I guess my first taste of serial killers was the Paul Bernardo case. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I remember that obviously real time. That was just insane.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at first it was, well, there's this peeper going around and he's doing all these weird things, and it turns out to be that he was actually, was him or both of them doing the killings. You really don't know, but messed up.
How crazy would it be? How crazy would it be if the news were to break, huge headlines all over the world, that a serial killer had been active for the last 20 years, storing bodies in his basement, and his name was Zach Bagans.
It's not crazy at all, man. I wouldn't, you hear of shit like that, not like that, but I mean stuff that would totally throw you for a loop and go, wow, okay, this guy does not seem like the type of person who would be doing this kind of stuff. Especially if it's somebody like your neighbor or somebody down the street or somebody at work or whatever.
Well, they always say that, though, right? Whenever they interview,
that's what I mean, right?
Oh, he was the nicest guy. He helped me take out the garbage every Wednesday. He took my dog for a walk. He was so nice, and he got 30 separate heads in the freezer.
You're lucky you didn't end up in that garbage, Gareth.
I want to point out that Gareth actually pronounced Zach's name correct.
Zach?
It is Bagans, not Bagans, Bagans.
Yes.
But isn't it more fun saying Bagans?
That's why I said his brother's name was Bilbo.
Bilbo Bagans, yeah. Okay, so he's
Hugh Spock.
You know what? We're going to take a short break here. Let everyone catch up and get a drink and do what you got to do, and we'll come back and we'll continue this conversation. Thank you for tuning in this evening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be around this wild, wacky, and sometimes disturbing world of ours. Yes, that's the intro to the Mindset Podcast, a weekly attempt to open eyes and shedding light on what's really going on in the world, all done by ripping apart the media madness that masquerades as news. Join me, Gareth Davies, every Sunday on the Mindset Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting services such as iTunes, Stitcher, and so on. Or you can go directly to the main Mindset website. That's www.mindsetcentral.com. Check out the Mindset Podcast. Bring your curiosity, your opinions, and a sense of humor. And remember that some worldviews are stranger than others.
This is Keith Age, and you're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Enjoy.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And as you heard in the first segment, I'm so used to saying in the first hour, you missed a hell of a lot. But you didn't, because it wasn't a full hour. So we're going to say a segment. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome back.
Hey.
And as we discussed in the first segment, we started off with Zach Bagans and the Demon House, and then the Demon House got into his infatuation with serial killers, and then we got sidetracked by serial killers. I shouldn't say we got sidetracked. I mean, it was a very interesting conversation about serial killers. It always is, isn't it? I mean, serial killers, come on. But
we found out Zach was a serial killer.
Yeah. Like Gareth said, wouldn't that be interesting when we find out that he does really have some dead bodies in his collection.
Could be.
What the perfect cover-up. Okay, so let's go back to the Demon House and how that sort of blew right up, if you will. Like, who knows anything about the background of that actual house? I know a little bit, but probably not as much as maybe, say, Justin. Do you know much about the background of that house?
Not necessarily, but I know it had a few people that lived in it prior to this particular incident, and that the one owner, he bought it recently within the past, within that time frame of when the current incident happened with LaToya. I forget the lady's name or whatever. But as far as we know, there's really no history that pertains to the story in itself or anything like that. Just that we know that people have lived in the house prior. Those people who lived there prior never experienced anything, and the owner of the house, even the current owner, from what I can remember, didn't experience anything or nor heard of any claims about the house being haunted. So, of course, in that area in itself, though, Gary, Indiana, which is not far from where I'm at, it's kind of run down. A lot of houses there have to have been there at least 100 years or so, somewhere around there, I would say. Yeah. So, the house in itself should have some history, even if it was made within the past, during the 40s or 50s, I would say. We got at least 70 years, of that history in that house one way or another. But no matter what we know is that there was no claims prior to this particular incident. So
let's look at that angle then. Obviously, some people know about Gary, Indiana, and how run down quite a lot of Gary, Indiana is. It's probably not the best place to visit for some folks, right?
No, it's definitely not, no.
So why this demon angle? We know how effective demons are, but why all of a sudden this house has demons?
From what I remember in the documentary in itself, it's really based off a dream Zach Bagans had, and he insinuates that there was, when you watch the documentary, they allude to, Baphomet, if you want to, a goat-like creature throughout the documentary. Little do you know, about halfway through or so, he talks about a dream that he had that involves that goat. That goat spewed black smoke into his mouth, and he became supposedly possessed or something like that. And from what I understand, the reason why they even insinuate demons more was because eventually, I forget the priest. Father Meganat. He was involved eventually after the caseworker and the police were involved with, this particular incident. And so that's where this loosely demons, as far as I understand, the father never mentioned anything about demons. It's only been Zach insinuating this the whole time throughout the documentary.
I hear somebody chomping at the bit there, Gord.
Wasn't me this time.
See, that's the problem. There's demons in every show now. It's become a standard, and people are eating it up, and it's killing me.
Well, like this movie in general, he's really reaching. Like, there's actually a point where he actually does some investigation, and I would say that after he realizes there's nothing here, so he's like, I gotta dig further into this. I gotta start digging more into this. But if you watch this without having that demon connotation to it, nothing goes on. If you remove all the other elements, it's just a story from what supposedly these people experienced. Yeah. And even from what I remember, they claim that there's a video that this police officer took of the boy walking up the wall, which is one of the first claims that there was something going on was that this boy walked off the wall while there was caseworkers and I believe a police officer there. The police officer was recording video. This is like right in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And even Zach, I think, in the beginning of it, puts up a warning. What was it? The following documentary named Bobby Sudo for all adolescents. The film shows real people, places, events involving alleged demonic possession, demonized, and it goes into this whole thing of trying to sell this. But throughout the whole thing, what else would there be if you didn't put demon in the title? And of course, if you look at the poster, it's the house in the shadow, and with red, background across it, and the demon house. It wouldn't have sold any other way unless he just did it as a documentary from like a TV, like a sightings TV show or something like that. That's really what all you would have because there's no evidence of nothing.
So in other words, it's like telling people that a new Star Wars movie is coming out. Yeah. It's released. And all it shows is footage from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
That's exactly what The Last Jedi was about.
Yeah.
That's all they were doing was, at that point, selling this. And I'm glad they showed this documentary. And I'm glad he showed a lot of what he does. Because, like I said, when you watch the rest of the movie, he actually does some investigating and really digs into what's going on here. But besides all that, it's really just taking these claims and kind of taking them for face value because otherwise we don't have video of the boy walking up the wall. Mm. We have very minimum pictorial evidence of some of the other things that happened in the house. Mm. And I think the biggest thing that they were banking on, was when they went to the basement and for whatever reason, I don't remember what was the cause, but they decided to dig up underneath the stairs. I don't know if it was the police officer or what, but they ended up digging up underneath the stairs and they found women's panties or female panties, or whatever. I guess that's the correct term, panties, and a clip-on nail and a couple other things that were underneath the stairs, and they assumed, as far as I can understand, Zach or maybe the police officer insinuates that this was some kind of... Oh, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't the police officer. It was the father again, Father Meganot, which is a key player in all this. He insinuates that was some kind of necromantic type of ritual that they did. And that is why they had those things underneath the stairs, whatever. So he eventually goes and tries to find out the previous owners what may have happened. And they end up finding out that one of the tenants from the early 1990s, her brother lived in the basement and may have been involved with some stuff and eventually died, which they later use. Zach later uses in the movie after that. Oh yeah, like basically saying, remember where the brother died? He never died in the basement. He just died, but he always cuts that out. That the brother who died, who lived in the basement. So there was a lot of key things that they're kind of washing over as they were telling the story. And of course, to a trained ear or even a trained eye who watches it, you can see a lot of the BS that comes through because even him asking these questions to the people around, as well as some of the people involved, they weren't getting a clear answer. And the only people that I took for some genuineness would be the police officer and the one caseworker who was not the original caseworker. They never got her, but one of the caseworkers that was involved, or at least knew the original caseworker, Valerie, if I remember correctly. They took her word as into what happened. And obviously the city of Chicago, or I'm sorry, it wasn't the city of Chicago, it's Gary.
Gary, yeah.
Yeah. So the city of Gary got involved at some point, and I believe it was the police officer who ended up getting the father involved later on after this particular incident. And of course, the news got involved and all these different things because of the caseworker who brought the supposed boy walking up the wall to everyone's attention. And she claims that she felt something and got sick. There's even... Oh my God! There's even more things that they keep tying to this house as you get further on in the movie. But that was really what they were hinging on was what Zach was insinuating, what the father was insinuating, and basically the loose claims from both the police officer, the caseworker, and the very little information they got from people actually involved with this. because he never interviewed the kids that actually experienced this, and he never interviewed the mother. And part of that reason why was because they got caught up by the producers, which they probably end up signing something, and they kind of kept their mouths closed as soon as Zach got involved. And that's probably what he was more mad about. Was like, man, I'm not getting anything because everyone is getting paid. Like literally, everyone got paid after the news hit, the actual news. Everyone got paid off eventually for interviews and whatnot for this story. And that's where things start getting muddy because you start listening to some of these interviews.
Yeah, I mean, that's you're sitting there and watching this, this dispute going on. I'm not talking. I didn't get paid and all this kind of crap. It's like, really, come on, are you serious?
Plain as day. And like you mentioned earlier, when this first came out, a lot of the people that, if on my Facebook and Twitter, Demon House is coming out, huge Ghost Adventure fans and people just overall on the paranormal couldn't wait to watch it. Some people said it was scary to them, and I could see elements of why that was. But besides all that, there was nothing there that really held it together evidence-wise, what he showed us, And even when they did show us evidence, there was, what was it? Supposedly there was an oil on the blinds that they didn't know where it came from. And I believe one of the police officers or caseworkers did a little test to leave the room and see if anyone moved or anything, the door or anything like that. When it came back in, they put a Q-tip underneath the door. So it wasn't moved, but there was still oil on the blinds. And apparently the caseworker touched the oil and her hand turned white. Now, what I found out about that was that when you actually look at the photo of her hand, it doesn't look white at all. Actually, you can see her fingers are flush, and there is some light skin color because she was a white woman. But besides all that, there was still color to those pictures. So that means either she just maybe had a reaction at that time that may have maybe lowered her blood pressure or something that would attribute to possibly that, or it just was, kind of exaggerated because I've been in enough investigations and heard enough stories where people exaggerate what they experience. Oh, he was, even when you say he turned ghost white, I've never seen it turn ghost white. I've seen color leave their body, but you never see anyone turn white, as pale as that,
You're leaving out the best piece of evidence, though, Justin.
Oh, bring it out, Gareth. Bring it out.
So there's a moment in the movie when Dr. Barry Taff is involved.
Oh yeah.
That's...
And when he goes into the house, he immediately starts feeling sick.
Yes.
I totally forgot about that.
Something he doesn't feel good, and there's a part where he goes into the bathroom, and in the bathroom he says, "Oh, something's in here. I feel terrible." And when they reviewed the footage of him in the bathroom, and you slow it down, there's a black shape that forms and flows out of the left side of the screen, and then flows out and then flows back, just for a couple of frames. And they could not recreate that black shape that came out in the footage. And regardless of what you think of Zach Bagans and Ghost Adventures and all that stuff, you cannot say shit about Barry Taff. That guy is legit.
Okay, so let's just clarify to those who are listening who Dr. Barry Taff is. For those who may not know.
From what I remember him as, is he was the one of the main parapsychologists for The Entity, the original case with The Entity. That was his main thing.
The movie The Entity was based upon. Yes.
So he was a legit parapsychologist. If Barry Taff and Kerry Gaynor were two of the principal investigators of the Entity case.
Yep.
In Culver City, California, in 1975. They worked with Dr. Thelma Moss at UCLA in their parapsychology department. And he's legit, dude. There is nothing phony or bullshit about him. He's 100% legit. No question.
and I don't know. I sit there and go, did that just end?
What?
him being legit?
No, it continues to this day. He's since the Demon House investigation, he's been deathly sick. He almost died. His organs shut down, and he's been in intensive care.
So that was a real thing. That really happened.
None of that was made up. That was 100% legit.
Okay.
Well, what I found odd was they mentioned a few things about his they mentioned his organs being shut down, but they talked about certain things being infected, and it was his gallbladder, his pancreas, I want to say, and his prostate. So I'm wondering if he just had like a urinary tract infection that just got bad or something, or maybe he was partying.
We can speculate. I mean, I was attempting to make a short movie about the entity because I found the actual location of the entity. Where it really took place.
Yeah.
And I attempted to reach out to Barry Taft multiple occasions 2 or 3 years ago, and I got nowhere.
Yeah.
And after a lot of research, he kind of dropped off the map.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I wonder what happened. I mean, is he dead? I mean, he was old. He was in his late 60s, early 70s. Maybe he passed on, and nobody publicized it, or what happened. And then, in the midst of my research, trying to contact Barry Taft, out comes the Demon House. Okay, so
he magically reappears.
Yeah, this is what happened. So he'd made Demon House like a year before I was looking for him or whatever, and you see what happened to him. He got deathly sick, and he's essentially fallen off the paranormal map. He's still around. He's still alive, but he's not doing anything. I don't know how badly, how ill he was or is.
I made several attempts to have him on the show. I contacted him several times.
Mm-hmm.
Got nothing. Yeah, nowhere with him either.
He's a fascinating character.
Yeah.
If you dig up some of his old interviews that he did on like Coast to Coast or other shows, he is a fountain of information.
Oh yeah, yes.
It's a listen. You could listen to him talk all day. His knowledge on the paranormal is incredible. And the cases that he's investigated is staggering. He was one of the principal investigators in the oh my god, I'm brain farting.
That tends to happen on this show.
The San Pedro haunting, also in California, where one of the cameramen was strangled in the attic. I don't know if you're familiar with this one.
It does sound familiar, yes.
And that was an intense haunting that Taft was involved in. But he's the real deal. Regardless of what you think of Zach, Taft is definitely the real deal.
Well, let's just say Zach Bagans rubbed on him a little. It's
something we should say about Zach also. I mean, you either love him or hate him. I think there's very few people that have like a middle ground view of Zach Bagans. They either think he's great or they hate his guts.
Yeah.
But whether he's a legit paranormal investigator or not, number one, he is a showman.
Absolutely, yes.
He is an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He is there to present these things in an entertaining way.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you don't take it too seriously, I think you'll enjoy it. Like, I really enjoyed Demon House. I thought it was a great movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I didn't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
I wasn't hanging on his every word. I sat there and enjoyed it for what it was. It was a fun movie. It's not the be-all and end-all. I'm not a fly on the wall watching an in-depth, serious documentary. I'm watching a fun reality show goof, It's fun.
They're just goofing.
Yeah, totally. It's a fun show.
I'll give anything a shot, and yeah. And that's the thing. You have to know the difference between, what's real and what's entertainment. I mean, that's right. That's the main point, views.
Exactly.
The main point. Gord, I mean, what was it about the Demon House that just irked you the most? Other than demons.
Oh, of course. I'm a big B horror movie fan, and that's how it kind of felt, except anytime there was an action scene, so where he said, we caught this piece of evidence here, whatever, conveniently, it would be a terrible camera shot. Like, there was one where he's pacing around a room with his camera crew, and then he said he got really angry and lashed out at him, and we caught it on film.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
You don't actually see the camera guy's footage or sound. All they have is a security camera from the corner.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? At least these B-horror movies spend $5 to make special effects. You could do something.
That's what you were hoping for.
But, you know, I got it. I like I said, I lost interest in Ghost Adventures a long time ago. You know, you had told me that it was coming out, so I had looked it up. I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. So I approached it with an open mind because I remember hearing about that house. And within 10 minutes, I was just annoyed. It was such a low quality, and I get it. It was supposed to be like a Blair Witch kind of thing, like a factual documentary. I get it. But the execution of the film to me was boring after 10 minutes.
So
it was kind of boring.
Yeah, I had a hard time finishing it. I mean, I finished it. I watched it, but I really, really had a hard time concentration-wise. To me, it just didn't hold my attention very well. But hey, it takes a lot nowadays, I think.
It was painful to watch the whole thing. I agree. Painful. I was begging for it to end.
So okay. What do you think about the future plans for this Sharon Tate murder house? I mean, do you see something like this coming out?
Absolutely.
I'm sure Zach is going to exploit the shit out of it and put together a movie of some kind or some kind of documentary or something along the lines of Demon House to do with the La Bianca house, you know, and the Manson murders. I doubt he just bought it just to buy it. I mean, there's got to be some method to his madness. He's going to turn this into some kind of lucrative business opportunity for sure.
He's going to pull out the secret weapon, and that being the during the show. I can see this now. They'll unleash some sort of investigation and try to get some sort of evidence that Sharon Tate is still haunting the house or whatever, and then he'll pull out his ace, and that being the ashes of Manson, and say, "Hey, look at Charlie. Did you really kill these people, or did you have these people killed?" I could see something like that unfolding.
Yeah, maybe he will do something like that. But the house. I should clarify: the house that he purchased is not the Sharon Tate house.
No, it's not her house. But I mean, that's where she was murdered.
Sharon Tate house no longer exists. That was bulldozed, and they built a new house there. This is the La Bianca house.
Yes.
The second group of murders that were committed by Manson and his followers.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I'm sure there will be some kind of lucrative deal put in place.
Oh, absolutely.
A movie or a Ghost Adventures episode, or who knows? I mean, I don't think he bought it for kicks.
No,
but he does. He does buy a lot of stuff and put it in his haunted museum. I know, Justin, you mentioned in the Demon House, the sequence with the staircase and the dirt they dig up, and they dig up the nail and the panties and all this stuff. Well, he even though the house has been bulldozed, he saved the staircase and the dirt and all that stuff, and the staircase is now on display in his museum in Las Vegas.
Wow, he saved.
That's all he could save.
Yeah, he saved the staircase and the dirt and the nail, the panties and everything, and he shipped it to Nevada, and now it's on display.
Wow.
In Las Vegas, in Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum.
All that's left of the Demon.
If that was the case, I would have gotten, if I was going to do this in the paranormal way, I would have got a psychic on those stairs. I would have brought in a psychic and say, get information on these panties. I need to find a woman. She's my Cinderella. No, but I would have gotten the stairs, because really, what's the point of even having that? There's other stuff that happened throughout the house.
Yeah, for sure.
That was not. So that was the only thing that was scary, I guess, because they found Legitimately, the police found that. It wasn't necessarily him. The police did find those things. As into why they were there, I mean, it's kind of questionable, and it's kind of morbid to even think about what the possibility of that is. But yeah, we really don't know, and that is another point in this documentary. And his use of just using things to keep pushing the narrative over and over again, and it keeps, and then throughout the movie in itself, it just keeps unraveling as he keeps going further and further down this rabbit hole, Gary, Indiana, in this particular house.
Gareth mentioned earlier about, wouldn't that be something if you find out later on that Zach Bagans is indeed a serial killer? And those panties are one of his victims.
Be messed up is if, say, a year from now, they find out that he really was, and then they listen to this old show, and so
we predicted it. We saw it coming. We saw it coming. We did.
I'd be fucked. They'd be dragging me out and questioning me. How did you know this?
Yeah.
I'll take 2% of those royalties. You guys can
Yes, so you Gareth Davies of the Mindset Podcast. Well, come with us, please.
Mr. Davies, where were you on the 4th? Do you know Mr. Bagans, Mr. Zach Bagans? Are you familiar with our defendant?
Don't stop. Oh, man. Alex, you were saying that you couldn't even finish it.
He couldn't. He just flipped. He just disappeared.
Did we leave?
He's like, I couldn't talk about this anymore.
I'm here. I was just so distraught over it that I couldn't, I was reliving a nightmare.
You're living a nightmare?
Yeah.
What kind of
I couldn't watch it. I couldn't finish it.
So how far did you get?
Maybe 20 minutes into it.
20 minutes? That's a big chunk.
I went 4%.
Hey, did you guys notice when you watched the movie, though? So one of the most disturbing aspects of the Demon House movie was that Zach Bagans was wearing skeleton gloves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Did you notice that, Justin?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I was like, what?
What the fuck? He had skeleton gloves on, which was great.
Yes.
The whole the mystique of everything.
Yeah, totally.
Redmond pointed out predictive.
One major point I think was when they actually got a house inspector. And
yeah.
That should be noted as well with this, because they found high traces of mold, asbestos, and many other contaminants within the air, which could lead to some of the things that they were experiencing originally. And
it could lead to somebody being demonized.
Or at least the sickness. I mean, maybe Dr. Taft got some mold in him, and he got infection from the mold. It's totally possible. Just like going into the pyramids where people were getting sick, they thought it was a curse, but really it was just bad air.
Bad air.
Back to disease.
So that's how people are demonized. we just figured it out. We know where demons come from now.
Just sprinkle black mold everywhere.
It's the secret of black mold. The black powder. Gord.
Yes.
What do you think about the black powder?
I don't actually remember the black powder. That's probably where I tuned out.
I don't remember black powder either. I just threw it in there. Oh, man. So, but you did finish it off, right?
I painfully watched it all the way to the end. And then I'm watching it going, okay, so you claim that there's demons, and I agree that Beelzebub goat-looking thing, and then he knocks it down. As I sat there confused, going, okay, so basically you bought a paranormal wonderland, you're supposed to be an investigator, and you just knocked the house down?
Yeah.
It made no sense to me. I get it that in reality he probably tore it down, built a new house there, and is making a fortune off it. I get it. But for the premise of Demon House, what?
It just shows the thin veil of what he was really holding onto there.
Uh-huh.
Because
even back and run.
You know how we were discussing the whole fact that people get sick and all that, due to mold and all that kind of stuff and asbestos. I remember doing a location, an old mental institution that was on the verge of being torn down. And I remember going in, getting clearance from the people who currently own the property to go in and have an investigation. And I told them, okay, well, could I do a walkthrough first to make sure everything's safe and da-da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, yeah, come on, just let us know what day you want to go in there and, everything's cool. So we went in there, documented the whole damn thing. And, there was, I think, four floors in total. And the basement floor was where they took care of the dying and the dead. They had where they did the autopsies and everything else down in the basement. The tables, the whole 9 yards were still down there. And but I going down there, I the camera, I had the light on in the camera. It was basically the only light that we had, and virtually you could literally see the asbestos.
No.
And I said, yeah, absolutely no way. We're out of here. We can't do this. There's absolutely no way. It's not safe.
Yeah, you gotta have like a breathing, like one of those filtration masks.
Yeah. You can't do it. It's just, it was. I mean, I have the footage, and it's just absolutely terrible. But yeah. I mean, that's an important thing, though. I mean, when you look at a lot of these hauntings,
yeah,
a lot of this stuff isn't taken into consideration because of how things are just propped right up, and automatically, something's not normal. It's paranormal.
So I have a question for you guys, because you guys are legit ghost hunters and stuff, and you go out and you try to capture evidence and experience this stuff. So your view on Ghost Adventures and Zach Bagans is, from my perspective, it's very understandable the way you feel. I get it. But overall, things like Ghost Adventures and Zach Bagans and Demon House and Paranormal Witness and all of this glut of paranormal based television shows that are on Travel Channel and things like that, constantly, almost on 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think these are beneficial to the paranormal field in general, or are they damaging it in some way? Well,
they've already damaged it. I mean, if you look at how things have changed in the past 10 years, it's if you were to carry out an investigation, say 10 years ago as opposed to now, things like protocols that were in place for a lot of serious investigators back 10 years ago are basically thrown out the window now. Stuff like, for instance, a cell phone. I mean, you'd have to make sure your cell phone was turned off.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Now it's like I've got a ghost meter on my cell phone.
Yeah.
I've got an EMF meter on my cell phone. I've got a ghost detector on my cell phone. It's a new app. I'm not saying everything in these shows is detrimental. No. I mean, there are some positives about it. I mean, number one, it brought more people to understand certain things about what goes on in an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that these shows are kind of, in some small way, diminishing the giggle factor?
I don't think they're diminishing. I think the giggle factor is just increasing.
Really?
I really do. I really do. When you look at something like, say, In Search Of, and then you come back and you look at, oh my God, Ghost Hunters is back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like there's this thing now, this gap between ghost hunters and this other show that Jason Hawes and whatever are starting up on the Travel Network or whatever. I don't know where they're starting up. I mean, so why aren't they together? I mean, what's the problem there? But I mean, this is what I mean. There's just too much drama. Now, created that people just don't. I don't know.
That's a good point. I mean, the real show shouldn't be Ghost Hunters. The real show should be why aren't they getting along anymore?
More or less. That's what it is.
That would be the show that I would want to watch. You know?
And that's when you watch these episodes. You know, the entertainment isn't the episode. It's listening. It's watching these, reading these comments on these social media platforms of the people who are taking it so bloody serious that they've stirred up this drama that carries over into the show.
Yeah.
You know, that they have to clarify themselves and say, look it. You know?
Well, in fighting in the paranormal that's nothing new. You know, that goes way back. You know, this my group is better than your group. My theory is better than your theory. I mean that's happened forever. You know, ufology it's the same. In the Bigfoot realm it's the same. Everyone's trying to get one over on the next guy. And that kind of impedes research, right? Because if everyone could get on the same page and work towards a common goal, then there might be a breakthrough. But
that's the key word.
Everyone's fighting against each other.
That's the key word, Gareth. Research.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really think that any of these people that claim that they investigate the paranormal really know how to investigate in the first place? Do they really know how to? Do they do any research? Other than, look at I got a phone call from so and so. This is happening. Let's go in and investigate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, without taking time to meet up with these people,
right?
Or sit down on the phone with them and say, "Hey, look it. Is there? I have to know. Are these issues going on in the house? I want to make sure that my guys are completely safe. I want to make sure you guys are safe. All this kind of stuff." Has to play out before you actually go in and investigate.
Yeah, but you have to understand that these shows are scripted. They're make believe.
No, I know that. I agree with you, and I know they're entertainment. But the problem is that entertainment now is spilled into the actual seriousness of it.
It's a lie that's presented as truth, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you see you see like a typical scene that you see in all of these shows, whether they be Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Paranormal, whatever. A lot of the UFO shows, Contact and Undisclosed, and all of these shows, they all have a key scene where you have a bunch of people sitting at a desk saying, "Hey, I got this research right here. I've noticed this. Oh, we got to get in contact with X guy. Let's call." And then they're in the car. Okay, we were driving over to his house to meet him for the first. And then that's all. Those entire two scenes are complete bullshit. It's because they already know the guy. They've already talked to him. They've already done research, and now they're just filming the backstory to make it look like they're walking down that path.
Exactly.
But for the average person watching this
doesn't give a shit about that stuff.
You got to fly on the wall watching these events unfold.
Yeah.
When in fact it's all theater. It's all scripted.
Yeah. They just
for the normies.
They don't give a shit about
the normies. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when you sit down and Gareth, for instance, Mindset Podcast. I got a new show coming up on Sunday. Right.
Yeah.
What do you do in preparation for that show?
I'm doing a ton of shit, dude.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. You do a ton of shit. You get prepared. You do some research. You write down some notes. Whatever. But the point is, that's the important part of investigating the paranormal too. The research.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's basically laying by the wayside now. Nobody even thinks about the grassroots of the paranormal anymore.
No.
I mean, how many people will take chalk and chalk this and or throw some dust down to make sure something doesn't physically cross through there or whatever. You know, there's so many things that aren't done anymore.
Let me ask you this. If somebody made a legitimate, they filmed a real investigation from beginning to end, it would be like watching fucking paint dry.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It would be.
Watch that.
You would be. It's like when ghost hunters used to do their live investigations. That's exactly what it was. Because they filmed live. So you're sitting here for 2 or 3, 4 hours, and nothing's happening. Of course. Mm-hmm. And I get that. I mean, obviously, I get that. I mean, that's the hard thing to get around. You can't throw that stuff in there because people just don't care about that. And what happens is, it's that stuff that people don't care about that gets thrown back into the actual community, if you will, that does this. These people go, look at, I want to go start investigating the paranormal. I want to go look for ghosts or whatever. And they you know what, they don't prepare themselves for what they're about to encounter. So that's why a lot of them just give up, because they firsthand see and experience how fucking boring it can be. Because it can be.
Yeah, I used to have this issue when I was looking for new members and stuff, and I even worked with some old members, and there was this one time we met up at Antioch Library, and I used to work with this crew, off and on, and we decided to kind of merge things together. So me and my member at the time, John, he was like a right-hand man for me. I went to the bathroom or something, or went to go print out some stuff, and what I used to do for every case, because we never went to, in my team, we never went to the place right off the bat. We kind of did phone conversations and then did some research about the area, with it be the city itself or the street, whatever we could find. Easily go to the library, easily go to, a historical society. This is the legwork we do,
And that's it, legwork, exactly.
Yes, seriously, the legwork. And I go to the bathroom, and he's there, and they kind of were talking behind my back. And what were they mentioning? Oh, Justin doesn't want to ghost hunt or something like that. And John was like, oh, no, he does, but he thinks, and I agree that we should be doing our research first before we go and do these things. And right off the bat, almost involved in the field as long as I have. Of course, the mentalities are different, and they're probably still the same from 10 years ago, but completely opposite. People who've been involved in this field, they couldn't do the research. It was just, let's go get our meters, let's get my psychic friend, and let's go to these places. It never was like to take the breather, actually investigate, actually do what we need to do that makes this what it is. And it's not the first time. Totally members meeting up, it's fun at first, but when you're like, oh, we got to sit here. I used to write pages of my own synopsis of what happened on these cases. I used to just post them on, these blogs or these forums and whatnot, and take time to do that, to actually sit out and write out a report in the sense of what happened that night or what happened that time we went or whatever, where literally people just post up their pictures. I used to go in detail on everything that happened, and we don't have that at all. And as we were mentioning earlier, was with these TV shows. I mean, Ghost Hunters, maybe the first season itself was probably somewhat valid. It was after that particular season when they're like, we need stuff to happen.
Well, that's the thing.
Something happened. That's when things changed. Yeah. And people, me at that time, I was happy. I was happy that we had a TV show out there. I think I was like 17, maybe 18 when that happened. So that's like 20 years ago. That we started to see the rise of these TV shows, and then Paranormal State came, and I kind of liked the first season again. It kind of went to a psychological. We need to look at this in a psychological point of view, and then the next season it was all demons. And it became more and more like that. Just change it up, go rightfully to these things. But yes, when in the beginning, I was happy. I was like, man, I used to have people, I'm like, record those shows for me because this is what I do. And then I watch them and I'm like, this is not what I do. This is not exactly what I do at all, And then when you watch Ghost Adventures, which is a key point this freaking documentary, all the yelling and the taunting and stuff, it just started to throw off what really was going on as what we do as a paranormal investigation. It's not, as I mentioned before on other shows, and I think I mentioned to Gareth before, we're really just in the aspect of what we're doing when you take out the investigation part. We're just glorified goth urban explorers.
Yeah,
abandoned buildings.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
What about this show? Let me ask you, because you guys are in Canada. Now, there's a Canadian paranormal show called Haunted by Paul Kimball.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this show?
Yes.
What's your take on that?
Terrible, absolutely terrible. No, you know what? It's not bad. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I don't know, Gord, have you ever watched any of them? I don't mind it.
Honestly don't know this show.
No, it's okay. I don't mind it.
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
I think Paul Kimball is legit too. I don't think he's a BS artist.
Well, he is Canadian, so he's probably a bullshit artist. I'm just kidding. We're going to take a short break here, but yeah, Justin, exactly. I mean, when you look at the finer details, when you look at, I hate the fact that somebody will tell you that I've got some evidence. And I hate using that word. I really do, because I don't classify it as evidence, because I really just don't know. Findings, yes, but evidence, I won't claim. I won't make that claim other than I leave that up to you. And for instance, when you look at we captured something actually like 10 years ago that I just discovered, and it just blew my mind away, and I said, man, this is mind-boggling. I've never really experienced something like this so clear and so vivid that it just, I have to sit there and go, well, I need to know more about this by finding somebody who might have an expertise in this sort of area. That's not even done anymore. I mean, yeah, you might see it on the show here and there, but I mean, do you really think these groups out there are doing that? No, they're not. Look, I got something, and they whip it up online, and that's it. End of story. Okay, so we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we'll finish this up a bit more. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Beyond, the television series that redefines the paranormal. Academic, scientific, and medical opinions that, combined with expert testimony, provide new insight into 48 phenomena that challenge the frontiers of human understanding. The Beyond series was originally broadcast on television in Canada and the USA. Now the series is available throughout the world on Hulu, Amazon, and TV Tibi. In Canada, it can be seen through Amazon On Demand. Come with us and take a step into the unknown lands that lie beyond. More information at beyondtheseries.com.
When you've had it up to here,
his hand is way above his head
with the commercials and the same 5 songs again
and again and again and again and again and again and again.
There's only one place to lock it down. New Visions Radio. No commercials, the best talk, and the best new music all over the world. NewVisionsRadio.com.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And if you're just tuning in or you tuned in during the break there, we've been talking about, in the beginning we were talking about Zach Bagans and the Demon House and, these locations that he's purchased and what he's done with them, especially with the house in Gary, Indiana. I can't remember. What was the explanation for him demoing the house in Gary, Indiana?
I really don't remember. I think, the conclusion before that happened, he was going through how many people got sick. He eventually got, I don't know if I'm even saying this right or if this is even real, diaphobia, which was he had some sight issues after being involved in that house. Dr. Taft was still sick. The little girl, one of the daughters, that's right. One of the daughters ended up trying to commit suicide and stabbed herself in her wrist, which he tried to attribute to a stigmata, which is not what a stigmata is, but that's what he implied. So I'm assuming two layers on this was nothing was really happening, and he knew that. And the other thing was, for story's sake, was the house was too evil because of all these things that were going on, that he had to destroy it. And there was even a couple times that he had an audio, if people listen to us, they were saying that someone said, "You're going to knock that down? You're going what do you know? What do you think you're going to release into the world?" Like someone mentioned that to him. And he has that audio play a couple times throughout the documentary when he mentions this, and it alludes to this point later on, and that's how it ends. It's like, what are you going to unleash into the world? Like 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo or something like that. But I think that's why he ended up knocking the house down, is that, and if I'm going to be honest, he found nothing. It was nothing in the end.
And let's face it, I mean, there's lots of houses out there that look very evil on the outside, but really there's nothing going on in them. Nothing.
No. And what I found weird was that whole segment when the girl was trying to commit suicide, the whole family seemed kind of shifty about it.
Yeah.
And when he interviewed the mother and eventually one of the sisters, they were both kind of relaxed, because and maybe that's just how they cope with that type of traumatic situation. But if I found out my sister or my daughter was trying to commit suicide, especially stabbing herself in the wrist that resembled stigmata, I would be kind of up in the air, maybe even more distraught than just sitting on the couch so comfortably telling Zach Bagans, what's going on. And it was when she did that, Zach was the first person she called about this. And we never have any information that she actually went to the hospital. We don't have any photos of the supposed stigmata. And the mother also mentions that the daughter ended up having a number 6 carved in the back of her daughter. Now, there should be photos of that. Now they go interview the daughter. She's in church. And I think they were trying to do an exorcism again. There was like 2 times they did an exorcism with the father. And I don't know if the daughter was part of that. But she claims she doesn't remember anything. And it was literally 3 weeks prior to when they were interviewing her that this particular suicide attempt happened. And she just totally is like, and they don't show no marks. They don't show her too in that current scene of anything on her wrist, or you don't notice anything like bandages or anything, because I would assume I've been hurt enough where I would wear even though you may have a scar or something still healing, you still have something remnants of it within a month's time span. She had nothing showing on there. So it was kind of an interesting plot that they kept pushing that, as well as the brother of that particular mother dying at some point, and supposedly 5 people died that either lived in the house or died in the house, but I think it was they lived in that house. It doesn't necessarily mean that they died in there. But that was most definitely the kind of giveaway for me that some of it was becoming bunk, especially after when he went to the house to try to get the squatters out, and they ended up talking to the squatters there. Both times they say that nothing happened, but then shortly after, the fiance of the female squatter, he comes and has a private conversation with Zach Bagans, and he clearly says, after Zach saying, well, your fiance says, that nothing ever happened. He goes, that's what her story is. This is my story. This is my story. And, they're making money off of this, and I wanted my cut. He clearly says that in this conversation with Zach Bagans. So from that point on, you can kind of get, if you just backtrack a little bit, everyone involved in this to some extent. And I'm not, including the police officers who were originally there as well as the caseworkers, but everyone after that point was clearly driven by money,
Yeah.
And that was shown specifically towards the end, right before they knocked the house down, because it gets weirder then. Now that you got all that, Zach starts acting weird at many points towards the end of the movie, where he lunges out on his cameraman, he lunges out at Dr. Taft, and then he has an episode, not only lunging out, but he has an episode where he grabs his other cameraman and starts dragging him. Well, both times these incidents happen, the other cameraman or producer or whoever was involved, I forget their names, but they didn't do anything. They literally just kind of stand there, not even shocked. They're just standing there like it's a normal thing that's going on.
Thank God somebody else noticed that.
Yeah, it was... yeah, like I said, I took notes and I scrubbed the hell out of it this third viewing. I've seen this movie 3 times now.
You know what I don't understand?
What's that?
I really just don't understand why they didn't... why didn't they contact Bob Larson and ask for a Skype exorcism?
Good point.
Because he already had a father, Maganoid, who already got paid.
Yeah.
Apparently. Because it does mention that he was talked by producers as well at some point. And there was even, I noticed that they did these exorcisms, and they claim that the father needed permission to do the exorcism, but it seemed to come directly after. And they mentioned that it was done in a church, if I remember correctly, but they show clips, if I remember as well, that it was in the house. Or the exorcism was done in the house, but there's clips of them doing an exorcism in the church, which I found a little odd. So I don't know if that's like a timeline issue or if that was set for dramatic purposes, but there was like many, I wish I had notes on that particular part, but there was many scenes that didn't correlate with what the narrative of the story was that was being told by us. It was kind of either, I don't know if there were reenactments or if this is literally just false information that they're giving us, both by the father as well by the priest, I should say, just to correct that, the priest, as well as Zach Bagans getting involved with that. And then, of course, the biggest scene for me that kind of threw everything off, besides the attempted suicide, was when his other cameraman, Jay. So there was like, I think, 3 or 2 cameramen who had some kind of weird experience with either Zach or on their own. This last one is he just supposedly is having an experience at the hotel they're staying at, and he's screaming down the hallway, saying like, dumb FFer, this and that, come at me, do this. And no one's sitting there like, dude, this is, out of line, and Zach, of course, has somewhat of this anger issue that shows up in the documentary. But it was odd to see that, because even as, let's say, a professional, who does that? Who starts screaming in a hotel?
Yeah, exactly.
And unless they know for sure that they are not going to worry about the police or a fine or something. It was most definitely something on a dramatic purpose, because they eventually have an issue and the guy's just like, cut the camera off. But they don't cut the camera off. And he starts calming down, and he even claims, like, I don't know what's getting over me. And they all attribute it to being a part of that house. And eventually he starts screaming again into the room. And then that's when they cut to Dr. Taft at some point, talking about how he has this infection and everything. So, I mean, there was a lot of... That was the other main thing about Ghost Adventures in itself, is this taunting and this anger issue with these things, because it never seems to be anything other than...
demonically possessed.
Yeah.
The true demons came out of the woodwork.
Yeah, it's pulling everything out. They go to this house and all their internal demons are going on. So they eventually get the cameraman off. They got him off and got a new cameraman involved.
Yeah.
And then that's when Zach ended up doing his lockdown, which was the next interesting part, where he has another outburst. And if anyone notices, throughout time, this house is unfurnished. It wasn't until lockdown that they furnished the house.
Now, you're telling me that lockdown was insane.
Yeah, because of him screaming by himself.
Yeah.
Having weird standing in corners, pacing back and forth.
Yeah.
You know? It was, I don't know what, well, obviously for me, and I'm going to be blunt about it, it was just his last string, his last grasp on what could have been used for the documentary. It's like, just leave me alone in there, and I do what I do best. I start screaming into ghosts and demons and whatnot, and hopefully something happens.
Yeah.
But it was most definitely a weird scenario just to have him, do it, because I've seen the show, but this is the first time I've seen them act like that weird. I don't know if you guys seen the show, and
he does that a lot on the show.
Yeah, he does that quite a bit. I mean, it
happens a lot.
The scene that I mentioned earlier, in the first one where the brick was thrown at them. I mean, they were screaming like little schoolgirls.
Yeah,
right after that. So all that's left is the what is it? The railing and some dirt.
Yes,
and that's at his museum in Las Vegas.
Haunted Museum in Las Vegas.
And Gareth, you had a friend of yours who visited that place.
Yeah, so a friend of mine, he goes to Vegas quite often for work, and I keep telling him, every time you go there, man, you got to go check out the Haunted Museum. And he's always like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'll go see it if I get a chance, blah, blah, blah. And then one day, he contacts me. He's like, dude, I got to talk to you. I'm like, what's wrong, man? I went to the Haunted Museum. I'm like, oh, no shit, that's awesome. How'd it go? Was it fun? He's like, I got to talk to you. I'm like, what do there's this ominous theatrical, it's like, all right. So we go for coffee, and we're sitting in a coffee shop, and I'm like, oh man, you got to tell me everything. Tell me how, the whole deal. And he starts telling me, about going to the museum and getting his tickets and waiting outside and going on the tour and all this stuff. And then things start getting a little weird. And he had a paranormal experience at the Haunted Museum, the Zach Bagans Haunted Museum. As crazy as that sounds. And the way he described the museum, the museum is intentionally done up very, very creepily, disturbing.
Of course.
Very dark, very ominous. It's intentionally done that way, right? Mm-hmm. The whole thing. And I think it costs it's like $60, I think, to get in.
That's not bad. That's not too bad.
But it's a 3-hour
tour.
Tour.
Okay. So that, I can see that. I can see that.
You get your money's worth.
Yeah.
And they take you around all the different rooms, the haunted rooms, and the rooms with all the artifacts and blah 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 and all this stuff. And he was into it. He's like, oh, this is going to be great. And it's very dark and gloomy and very kind of creepily done. It's like Disneyland's Haunted Mansion on steroids, right? And he went into the room where they have all these haunted dolls, allegedly, open quotes, haunted, close quotes, dolls. Mm-hmm. And something very strange happened. Now, luckily for me, because I'm a bit of a maniac, when he was telling me this story, I had my recorder with me, and I recorded the entire conversation. And luckily for you, dear listeners, I have the recording right here, and I've queued it up right to the point where he starts describing the paranormal experience that happened to him. And I should say before I hit play here and let you guys listen to it, he is not BSing. He is being 100% on the level, no bullshit. He's telling it like it is. So have a listen to this. Here we go.
And I'm not actually touching it. So I guess my back is like maybe 18 inches away from it. But there's no one behind me. And the people that are next to me are not where they can... So basically what happened is I felt a finger on my left shoulder blade.
So you were touched, like someone poked you.
I was touched very softly, not like a poke or anything, but just very gently, a finger. Now, the way I would interpret it now, looking back at it, to me, it could be a female finger, because quite honestly, it was a gentle touch.
Okay. You immediately turned around, right?
Guy would normally just put his hand on your shoulder or whatever, but
so when you felt this touch, you turned around like immediately.
I turned around immediately. There's nothing there. There was nothing, sticking out that could do that. So I thought that's weird.
Yeah.
So I kept it to myself. I didn't mention it because I didn't want to add to this whole tour by already yelling out, "Something touched me!" No.
So yeah, he got poked in the shoulder blade.
Wow.
By something, and he said from that point on, as the tour commenced, he became more and more disturbed and nauseous. And so much so that he almost had to put his hand up and say, I need to leave. He did see it through to the end.
Yeah.
But he found it very, very, very disturbing.
Is he considered any sensitivity at all to anything, or is he considered a skeptic of some sort? Or?
I wouldn't say a skeptic, but not a believer either. He's just he's a normie.
Yeah, normie.
he's a regular guy, but he's not like super dismissive, like, oh, that's all nonsense. He's not like that. But by the same token, he's not like there's ghosts everywhere. He's very kind of middle of the road.
He's you show me the evidence.
Yeah, he's that kind of guy.
Yeah, show me. I want to see it. It's like,
but it really affected him. It really disturbed him.
Something like that would, because I had a similar incident happen to me during an investigation, and it was pretty eye-opening.
Did you get poked, or
no? I actually had my I was wearing a T-shirt, and the sleeve of the T-shirt was gently tugged. It was tugged, and it was during a EVP session in the front parlor room of an old house. Gordon and Alex are familiar with the Spruce Lane farmhouse, and it was August. It was all the windows are closed in that place. They don't have the windows open, so there was no breeze or anything like that would give it, lead credence to the fact that maybe it was just, a wind or something. No, it wasn't like something just, rippled the shirt. No, it was actually a tug. It was out. So it was eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that would be.
Yeah.
So
it is. I mean, it's disturbing when something definitely happens.
Well, yeah.
But you have no real explanation as to no normal explanation as to what could cause it.
See, my way of thinking is automatically when something like that happens is, okay, I got to try to explain that. Yeah, I mean that's a natural occurrence, but I need to recreate it. I need okay, what did this? So you play out in your mind the possibilities, and you simply go to yourself, okay, I can't explain this. I can't recreate it. What the hell is going on? And there's nothing on, because we had the security cams going, nothing, you can't really see it. There's nothing unusual, but the audio, there was something that happened during the audio, some of the recordings that were picked up were cued pretty much at the same time, shortly after that happened. So it sort of gives more ambience into the fact that, okay, what just happened?
Was it the audio of it rustling, being pulled, or
no? It was some children.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I said, this place is just, Gordon and Alex will tell you, well, they both have had a really weird incident happened to the both of them in this house. And Gord is pretty skeptical.
I am. That is one thing I cannot explain.
So, God, we're pretty much done here, guys. Oh man,
time has flown.
Arm for part 2. No, guys, Gareth, we'll start off with you. Let everyone know where they can find you.
You can find me at mindsetcentral.com, where every week I do a podcast called the Mindset Podcast every Sunday. Justin has been on a bunch of times, so check it out, mindsetcentral.com.
And Justin?
We actually met here on Nocturnal Frequency, Gareth.
That's right.
You can find me CrazyJ82 on the Twitter or Justin Villareal on Facebook, and also I just got everything somewhat updated. You can go and head over to the anomalousradionetwork.net, and that's where some of our old shows are. I'm hoping to get some new stuff actually next month, maybe talk about some of my adventures in Central Illinois, and hopefully get some you guys on and talk about more stuff. So check it out.
Awesome. Once again, guys, thank you for joining us, Gord, who's a regular on the show now. God.
Scary, I know.
I look forward to another round soon.
Yeah,
I look forward. Until then, guys, have a good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and take care.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks, guys. Good night.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his synthetic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
You've tuned into Nocturnal Frequency Radio with your hosts,